Today is a great honor and welcome back to our English program again. And we have brought up another very interesting topic entitled the role of what or monastery. So to understand in depth and in detail how the Khmer Wat or Wat monastery of Cambodian play its important role in promoting peace and its contribution to the society, we will hear from our Dhamma speakers today. Join with us. First, we have invited Most Venerable Dr. Yon Senjit Preh Mani Gosal, live from the Kingdom of Cambodia. Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming. And again, we have invited Venerable Thita Kuno Kaisopir from California, USA. So it is a great honor for our program today that both venerable speakers have spent some time to join with us. So we will discuss a little bit about the importance and the role of the Cambodian monastery, not just in the Kingdom of Cambodia, but also the Khmer monasteries throughout USA, how it plays important role in helping our Cambodian people as well as people in the whole world. So without further ado, let me say greeting and pay respect to Most Venerable Dr. Yon Senjit Preh Mani Gosal from the Kingdom of Cambodia. How have you been, Pante?
I'm good, thank you.
So in Cambodia right now is, I believe it is 8 a.m. in the morning. Have you finished your breakfast?
Yes, just a cup of coffee.
Okay, so I'm so worried about what happened right now in Cambodia. How is the situation at your temple?
So far so good, yeah, but the infections has been on the rise these days. Anyway, it's still under control, which had been taken by the government. So everything seems to be okay right now.
I hope that everyone stays safe, especially our monks in every monastery. I hope that they all stay safe and sound. So anyway, we would like to get to know a little bit about monasteries because as Cambodia is one of the Theravada Buddhist countries and Buddhism has spread strongly long time ago, not just in Cambodia but in many parts of the Southeast Asian countries, and Cambodian has strongly hold Buddhism dear and near to their heart, and Buddhism has played a very important role in Cambodian people's life in terms of their spiritual guidance and practices. So first of all, before getting to know the roles of the monastery, let me know from Most Venerable Dr. Yon Senjit, as you are now residing in Cambodia, can you tell me about the information of the temple or what monasteries throughout Cambodia? How many monasteries are there and how many monks are there as far as you know?
According to the latest statistics issued by the government, especially the Ministry of Cults and Religions, nowadays we have 4,985 temples across the country, which we have over around 70,000 monks, Mahanikaya and Dhammayutta combined, because we have two sections, two Nikayas in Cambodia. So this is the numbers of the temples and the monks which belong to both Nikayas.
Thank you so much, Most Venerable Doctor, for sharing a brief information about the total number of the monasteries throughout Cambodia. As you mentioned, around 4,900 monasteries throughout Cambodia and around 70,000 Buddhist monks in Cambodia. So let me move back to Venerable Thita Kuno Kaisopir, who currently resides in California, USA. How have you been, Pante?
Hi, well, Pante, I'm doing pretty good, but a little bit busy with so many things around. Yeah, so far so good. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. So how is the situation at your monastery? Is everyone doing okay during this pandemic?
Yes, mostly our grandmas and grandpas and all the devotees, mostly the aging people, got vaccinated uh, from this deadly virus. So we so far got many numbers of people get vaccinated. So we are doing pretty good right now. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your information. I do hope that our Cambodian monks and people in every places stay safe and sound during this pandemic. And I would like to know also about the Cambodian monasteries throughout USA, as well as how many Khmer wats or monasteries are there throughout the United States of America. Please, Pandit.
Thank you. According to the statistics established, the booklet established by our Vice President, Venerable Pastor Paul, we have so far 334 temples, monasteries. But there's another monastery in Florida, which is in St. Pete. I'm not quite sure whether it is registered yet, but so far we have 334 and maybe a little bit more because we don't know exactly the numbers. Because of the pandemic, we couldn't go around and do another statistics to get to know more temples, monasteries. And about the monk, a few years ago, and maybe last 2 years, we have more than 400 monks. But because of the pandemic, we might be having less monks. Some of them went back to Cambodia and some, back and forth. And so there's no exact numbers because of this pandemic. So yeah, we have 400 monks in the across the US. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pante, for sharing a brief information about the Khmer monasteries, what we call as Cambodian word as wat. We have around 334 monasteries throughout the United States of America. So these are the Khmer monasteries. We only talk about the Khmer monastery throughout the United States of America. And as you mentioned, about 400 monks living in America. So it is a news. I think it's a good news, and also it's a good work that Cambodian Buddhist Monk Society in USA have worked hard in order to collect the information throughout the United States. Some people, they might want to know the Cambodian monastery where they are located. So we also have published as a booklet, especially made by Most Venerable Pastor Paul. We have the English version, and all the address are there if you want to know more about the Khmer monasteries. So feel free to contact with the CBMS. So we have the booklets, and also we have been contributing to people around the United States in order to have some information about our temple. And now we are approaching to Khmer New Year as well. In the next 2 weeks, the Khmer New Year is coming, and I believe that every Khmer monastery is very busy preparing to welcome the Khmer New Year. And so I would like to know, I also would like to discuss and ask some questions to Most Venerable Dr. Prehmani Kausal from Cambodia. When we talk about wat or monastery, how would you define the term wat? As sometimes Khmer people refer to call it as a wat aram. So what does it mean by that term, Most Venerable Doctor?
Terminology itself is translated as the way of practice in Pali term, but this term had been used in Cambodia to name a center, a religious center, especially referred to the Buddhist center as a residence or a place where mostly the monks are living, and a place where the Buddhists from all over the country come to learn, to live, and so many things. Especially, I can say that the Buddhist, the Wat is a sort of multi-dimensional center for Cambodian Buddhists. And we also we extend the term Aram, combined with like what Aram. Aram, according to the Pali term, it is a place where people can rejoice or enjoy. So in short, Wat Aram is a place where Buddhist monks stay, and a place where Buddhism has been taught and propagated, a place where people can come and heal themselves, a place where people can come and express their sorrows, a place where people can come and talk so many things. And to the deepest meaning, I personally believe that temple or Wat is a place where people from all walks of life can come and say something, talk something, and do something in terms of the good deeds. Thank you.
Thank you. And most Venerable Doctor, is it what is this term derived from a Pali word, isn't it?
Yes, Vata. Actually, this term in the if we look at the Buddhist scripture, what used to refer to the way of practice, like we say, what Pranipat, a path for practice. During the Buddha's time, it is known as vihara. Vihara is referred to the word that we are using nowadays, like Velavan Vihara, Velavana Vihara, Edavana Vihara. But gradually, in Cambodia, we use the word Wat to refer to a place, especially people know it as a place that monks stay, or simply mean a Buddhist center.
Yeah, thank you so much, Venerable Doctor, for sharing some information. I think it is very interesting that people come to understand this term, particularly how does it refer to when you share about it is a place where usually the monk reside and stay, and also it's the term derived from Pali, which means to practice. So the temple is like a spiritual practice where monks conduct, are committed to good conduct and practice in terms of morality, discipline, meditation, and so on. And it also add up with another word as arama. And again, it is also the Pali word that we borrow to use it to mean it is a place of delight. It is a place of, where people can pay attention to because of the attraction, the way the monks manage and prepare the temple to build a peaceful environment for people who are coming to seek spiritual guidance and so on. So again, let me move back to Venerable Thita Kuno Kaisopi. If you had, Venerable Doctor, you have anything else to say?
I would like to add a few more words on the issue. I think this term, the term Wat, is used especially in Thailand, in Laos, and in Cambodia. I'm not sure in Myanmar what kind of word that they use to call the temple, but in Sri Lanka, people don't know that if we call the Buddhist temple as a Wat, they call the temple as Vihara. But I'm not sure in Myanmar. So these three countries are used the same word to refer to the place where that monks stay or monk live, which we know in Cambodia as a Wat.
Yeah, definitely, Pandey. Definitely, I think mostly we see Cambodia, Thai, and Laos. We use the word Wat to refer to the residence of the monk. Whereas in Myanmar, they use the word Pong Chi Chang. Pong Chi Chang refers to the school of the monk. They don't use the word Wat, but they refer to some sort of school of the monk, Pong Chi Chang, as in their language. So thank you for sharing, and let me turn to Venerable Kaisopir. We have use different terms to refer to the place where the monk lives, but I think sometimes we get confused with the English term. Of course, we are not native speaker and we don't, exactly know how to define it 100% correct or not, but as far as I have seen, there are some words that Khmer people used to call it. Sometimes we use the word pagoda. You know, it's funny. Sometimes the word pagoda, in the sense of Myanmar people, they use it to refer to the stupa, the chetiya, you know, like the Sui Gong pagoda. And when we say pagoda, it completely means different thing for Myanmar people. But in Cambodia, pagoda would refer to what, you know, and then we also have the word temple, and of course in some countries like Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Singapore, etc., the word temple is very popular. It is being used in many countries. And again, in Cambodia, if you use the word temple, people might think about the ancient monument like Angkor Wat temple, but we don't think it is a temple where the place where the monk lives. So the kind of confusion. So I want to ask Venerable Kaisup here, what is the most popular word, used to refer to the what that we are referring to the place where the monk lives? Can you give the English, suggest the English terminology, please?
Thank you, Venerable. For me personally, I don't feel those words are different, because it refers to the religious place. So as long as you it depends on you have to accept that the fact that we are all practicing religious, infiltrating through cultures and traditions. So English, if you want to use exact word and to describe a temple, or like we are all talking about, it depends on the countries, it depends on the cultures that you've been using the word. So the language is created by human beings. As long as we are recognized as a word that you are referring to a place where the monks stay, for me, I don't know, some people might have different opinions, might have different understanding, but personally, I don't take that seriously. When we talk about what, or sometimes you are referring as a monastery or the temples, for me personally, what is monk's house? It's just a different, sometimes a normal house for the people, they have different portions for, like they have a place where people can gather for guests and for, but a temple or monastery, we have a different portion for monks to stay, for people come to worship, like Vihara, referring to the place where the monks gather to perform their disciplinary, the rules, which is mentioned in the Tipitaka. So what a monastery or temples or pagoda is a center, is a religious center, is serving not only the Buddha's teaching, but also the cultures of each country that they are practicing. Like in Cambodia, we have, every festival, every ceremonies that the major celebration in the country are normally celebrating at the temple, at the monastery. So, but there's two things that I would like to express here. When you express the word what, people normally refer to the place, but people often forget to have what in their heart, in their mind. Practicing the Buddha's teaching, it's not only the the religious place, but practicing the Buddha's teaching is often living within ourselves, in our daily life. So if you have what in your heart, in your mind, in your daily, so that is you always have monastery in yourself. So for me personally, as long as you practicing the right thing and basically the teaching of the Buddha, so you have what in yourself. So, but here, as you said, is the place where the monks stay and people come and watch and practice and doing religious things. So this is all. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding all of us to the term what, as you refer to. Something is not just referring to the place where the monk live, but it also reflects the practice that the monks does, and not just the monk, but for us as a Buddhist, what is something like spiritual practice? It means that we all have to do the practice. We have the symbol of Buddhist monk, because the word can be defined in various ways, but how we often use it, and traditionally it comes to our understanding automatically by that way, So again, it brings me to another term, as the most honorable doctor have raised about the word we hear. Some people, especially in the Cambodian context, we are still confusing about we hear and what's, even some they accuse that what should have we hear, otherwise it's not like a complete thing as a what. So, Venerable Doctor, what would you explain about this, the term we hear, and what some people say we hear is like a shrine where people pay respect or do the worship or praying, chanting, but what is something, it's like the whole compound of monastery. Is it true?
Yeah, good question. I think this is the complicatedness of the terminology usage. But the meaning of the terms we had been used by different Buddhist countries just refer to the, something which can be known easily in their own respective location or country. For example, vihara, definitely everybody will agree with me that the term vihara is referred to the temple or to a place where the monks stay. Especially if you look at the Buddhist scripture, definitely that term is used by the Buddha. And vihara or vihara, which is used in Cambodia, is referred to the uposatthakara, a building where the monk can perform the Sanghakama. So this is a little bit complicatedness, but I think the identity, the monastery identity is defined by different countries. For example, in Sri Lanka, the monastery must consist of Chetdai. Chetdai doesn't mean the stupa where they keep the normal people bones or ash. They keep the Buddha's relics or the Arahanta relics, that they stupa. And they must have bo tree, Chetria, and the monks. But in Cambodia, our temple, we have monks, vihara, and I think this is very important. This vihara seems to be the most important buildings in Cambodian context. So if I'm asked to exactly define the term what in one word in Cambodia, I would like to say that Cambodian Buddhist temple, definitely there has to be monks, and the building it depends on how people define it or evaluate it, but it is very important for sure. But vihara is used for many purposes in Cambodian context. So if we look at the definition or the important value between the Sri Lankan temples and the Cambodian Buddhist temple and Thai temples and Myanmar temples are different. So it is very difficult to exactly define the term monastery to fit all the meaning of all these Theravada Buddhist countries.
Thank you so much, Venerable Doctor. You just raised about the word monastery, and it reminded me about this term when I joined the interfaith dialogue here in Seattle. I once time talked to a Hindu monastic monk because he asked me, "Are you a monk or are you a monastic monk?" Then I asked him, is there any difference between a monk and a monastic monk? So, so the answer was very interesting. That's why I just want to clarify a little bit about the definition. It may be helpful, you know, because when we define the right terminologies, because there are different kinds of monk, of course, not just in the context of Buddhist monks, but also in other religious. They have their own priests, they have the monks too, but some monks, they don't live in the monastery. So they don't call themselves as a monastic monks, and they don't even shave their head, you know. So when I talked to him, I didn't even realize he was a monk. He sit close next to me and he talked to me. Are you a Buddhist monk? I said, yes, I am. He said, I am a monastic Hindu monk. And then I started to ask, what is different between the monastic and not monastic monk? He said, monastic is someone who devoted one's life on the path of practice without married to someone, no marriage engaged. That's why he said monastery is the good term that fit in that sense. If you are living in a place of you know, like seclusion, or without having the family life as marriage or something. So I think it's a good reminder for all of us to just a little bit understand about the term. Of course, we have been confused sometime because of the term, and here we're not trying to be, you know, terminology specialist, but we just want to define, because some people have misunderstand about the term. And of course, as Venerable Kaisapir has already mentioned, that it depends on how we culturally and traditionally use it. And Venerable Doctor also pointed out that from countries to countries, the term has used in different ways. That's why we want to look back at the Cambodian context, how what or monastery means and play its role in helping our Cambodian people, not just the monks, but also the lay people. So let me turn to Venerable Kaisapir. As you already talked a little bit about the temple, such and such is a kind of place to do this and that. So what are some roles that Cambodian wat or monastery have been contributing to Cambodian society? If you could look back a little bit of historical background of the Cambodian wats, how did it play the roles in helping Cambodian society, please?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, before I begin answering this question, I would like to refer to what you have just discussed with Venerable Doctor about, and also with the Hindu monk. You know, when one thing that we need to remind ourselves that English is not an ancient language. English has been developed and derived from a variety of the language. And you know, when he referred that, oh, you're a monk or monastic monk, have a different meaning. So I think that we are all in other Buddhist countries such as Cambodia, Thailand, and other countries can get married. Because if we just specifically mention that, oh, if you are saying that you are a monastic monk or you're just a monk, then you still can marry. So it depends. I mean, like, I don't know whether he's growing up here, or I would make a joke that, oh, then I still can go and get married then. Because, you know, it depends on, for me, deeply it's depend on the cultures that people in the culture accepted us. And when they call us as a monk, you know, they think that we are devoted our life to the Buddhist practices. I mean, like, if they are saying that, if we are saying that I'm a Buddhist monk, so we are devoted our life to practice Buddhist teachings. So yeah, so it depends. So while the terminology is really complicated sometimes, and it depends on your personal understanding. And while we are not scholars, I'm not a English scholar, so we cannot go along and differentiate these differences. So, but I would say that we must follow our cultures and as well as people cultures. We also have the same Buddhists, but we have different cultures, of course. And we so that I would refer to the monastery that we are talking about, that you are asking that what is the role of the monasteries, and especially the monks who are living in the monastery or temples or pagoda. So the role is to preserve, to preserve and also spreading, disseminating the teaching of the Buddha. So it represents, temple represent the value and dignity of each culture, each people that come from different part of the world. So when we talk about the Buddhist temple, Buddhist monastery, Cambodian Buddhist monastery in America, you can see that we are playing a very important role in healing the people who had traumatized from the Civil War. And not only that, and because Buddhist temple, Buddhist monastery is a center for all people to come and share their happiness, their suffering, and everything. It means a lot. Right? It means a lot for all of us as a Cambodian people, and at the same time, we are sharing the teachings. The basic teaching of the Buddha that can assure all of us to sustain our happiness in our daily life. So there are many more things. I think maybe Venerable Dr. Yonsing, you can share with us more about this, because we've been practicing Buddha's teaching from many generations. So I think it rooted deeply in our lives as a Cambodian. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, especially the most important point about temple or monastery. Its role is like a place for healing, as our Cambodian people have gone through a lot of hardship, especially the civil war and genocidal regime, which have people left people in trauma and so on. So temple is like a place to have healing people in terms of spirituality. So again, let me turn to most venerable Dr. Yonsing Yit about the same question, that what are the roles of Wat or monastery, especially in the Cambodian context, historically, when we look back at in the past, how Wat or monastery play its roles in helping people or preserving in many different fields. So Venerable Doctor, please have share with us about the roles of monastery.
The Cambodian Buddhist temple plays a very important roles in the society, especially if we trace back in the history since the reign of King Jayavarman, when Buddhism had been declared as a state religion of the country. Simply mean that most of the population were Buddhist those days, and the rulers also practiced Buddhism genuinely and deeply, especially if we look back into the scriptures we found during the King Jayavarman VII, even though he declared himself as Avalokitesvara, is one of the Bodhisattva in Mahayana. In whatever Nikaya he followed, still signify the importance of Buddhism in Cambodian society. From 1st century till 1975, so Buddhism had played a very important role. But the day that the Pol Pot regime came to power, so Buddhism had been grounded and destroyed and abandoned and forbidden. So let me jump up to the recent history, especially nowadays. Even though Buddhism has been facing a lot of problems, especially its resources, human resources and material resources, in terms of the religious structure had been destroyed. The monks, especially the learned monks, were persecuted. In a way, Cambodian Buddhists are still able to manage to get back on their own feet. And nowadays, we get back and everything is on the rise and on the practice, the situation of the temple is fine. If it is not perfect, but it's fine, it's good, yeah. And there are so many ideas which define the Cambodian Buddhist temple. The temples in Cambodia, some people call it a place, the religious institution in terms of the Buddhist practice, and some people call it as a Buddhist hospital because people where the people can come and heal themselves and express their sufferings. And some people call it as a cultural center, a traditional center, or in some sense they call it is a political center where that the nationalism is born and fed and touched and discussed, you know. And the other people, some people might call the temple as the educational institution where the temple provide all kind, formal and informal educations to the populations, especially to the underprivileged population. The destitute people always come to the temple for help. And I would like to call a temple as, maybe I would like to add one more idea, that temple is a charity center where people can come and have free lunch, even though not always good lunch, but it is still a lunch that, especially, you know, when there is big festivals like Chumban or Jolchnam or any big ceremony in the temple, we always see the poor people come and have a lunch with the monks, with the people, especially with the ones who are living in the temple. And one thing that I like about Cambodian Buddhist temple is in the temple, we don't define the social status. From the king up to the beggar, people can come and have lunch in the temple. So this is a very important. And we also have a lot of negative points, especially we also have a positive point. That is the situation, the law of nature that one always have two faces, good sides and bad sides, but it is okay, that is the society. And in short, I call the Cambodian Buddhist temple as a place where that all people from all walks of life can come and enjoy their life. Thank you.
Thank you, most honorable Doctor, for providing some important roles of the Cambodian Wat or monasteries. As you said, it is like an education center, a cultural center, like some people call it as a hospital, charity, and it remind me about my past experience as a temple boy, you know, back 20 years ago, after the you know, the Pol Pot regime. Cambodia has faced a lot of hardship, and especially a lot of family, they, you know, underwent the hardship, the difficulty because of economic problem. And I myself, including some of my family, also we, you know, sought help from the temple. We went to live in a temple in the hope that we could get some food to eat and place to stay and a place to learn as well. After the Civil War, we don't have a lot of schooling, so the access to education was very hard at the time. So temple was the school actually to have people come and learn for free. And we would see most of the temple in Cambodia, in the Wat, we mostly have the at least the primary school for people to study freely, and even sometimes we learn from the monks as well, not just in the secular primary school, but in the temple itself. We have the Buddhist education, which provide free education, and the temple boys also live freely. We don't pay for anything. It's like a hotel for us, for example. So I believe that the Cambodian monastery has done a lot of important role in helping people's life, not just in terms of cultural, charitable, education, hospital, but also the I think the life and as well as the experience to build us growing up well to understand the world. And specifically for myself, I have been in a temple since I was 7 years until now. I have been living in monastery until now. You see, if not for the temple, I would not have been as I am today. So it is very important when we talk about the role of monastery. Let me turn to Venerable Kaisupi. Some people raise the idea that now the monks are focusing on building the temple, building more monasteries. Some argue that it is useless just to have the big building and monastery. Do you see that this argument is right or not, especially in terms of America, United States of America? We see that a lot of monasteries are growing up. You know, we're trying to create more monastery. Is there anything which is not useful by building the monastery?
Thank you. But before I answer this question, I would like to join both of you on the meaning of the monastery. You know, I would say that monastery or Buddhist temple in Cambodia offer hope and opportunity. You know, I mean, we are the monks. I can say that we are poor. We were born in a very poor family, and then temple give us an opportunity and hope to be better in this life. And yes, I refer to regarding to your question. I was being asked about this question the same with the counselors, and I don't know, the city councilors in Long Beach here in California, and many others. You know, there's a media producer because they are trying to understand the Cambodian cultures. Why do we have to preserve the Cambodian cultures in the U.S.? And they ask the same question. Why do, you know, especially in Long Beach where I live right now, we have more than 14 temples, which is more than any other places in the United States. And then I post back the question. For me personally, it doesn't matter how many temples we have, how many monasteries we have, as long as we do have people come. And I asked them back and said, you drive around Long Beach, you see how many churches was being built in Long Beach. And then he was surprised that, oh, really? Yes, every corner of the street, they have churches. So, you know, a lot of people might be having a negative thought about it. But for me personally, well, you know, every culture and every country, every nation, every ethnic city, we all have problems. You know, sometimes we might not having the same idea along. We couldn't get along with the same idea, so we build another one. So it's not the big deal. You know, the most important thing is that you are serving the people who are in suffer. We are helping the people who are in need, and if you are focusing on the negative things, so how are you going to live happily in life? Because this is what we are. We learn from mistakes. We are getting rid of suffering because we are understanding it. We learn from the suffering and to get better, to be more happy. And then we look at the temple, we look at the monasteries, and then some people are not, you know, for those who are true supporters, true sponsors to the monasteries, they don't complain, they don't argue, but only a bunch of people who might have different ideas, or I don't know, but so we respect that. For me personally, I respect that. Okay, you can complain, you can have different ideas. Why monks are building many temples? If you don't like it, you just avoid it. So that's how it is. You know, that is how we live the life, and it's not a big deal. You know, because this is how we live. Even in America, you see how many churches, how many other religious. You know, even the Muslim mosques here. We have many of them here. So, because here sometimes, we have a small place and people, and if you want to build a big monastery far from the people don't want to go. So when we have a small place, so why is it matter to have another one? So you can have a place for people to come and do religious things which can comfort you when you are suffer. So yeah, this is what I understand. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bante. I think it is very critical point for the present situation, and I believe that people can start to understand why we need a monastery. Like in the country like USA, we have a lot of Khmer population throughout the states, and even some states they don't have the Khmer temple yet. So because Cambodian people, very devoted to Buddhism, so they always likes to have a place where they can go and celebrate at least their own cultures, like the Khmer New Year itself. Imagine without the temple, where would they go during the Khmer New Year? Even you have a big hall, big places to celebrate the Khmer New Year, I believe that it would not be as happy as in the temple, right? In the monastery. So thinking about this idea, monastery is not only just a center for gathering, but also a place where people can freely enjoy and they feel safe being at the temple. They don't feel like being forced or being charged of money, and they feel delightful bringing donation and foods and material to offer to the monks. And this is like a spiritual place where they can spiritually become happy whenever they approach the temple. So when we understand the concept of the Khmer wards in United States, I think we can get understanding more about how Cambodian ward plays its important role in helping people, not just physically, but also spiritually. So let me turn on, move back to Venerable Dr. Yon Sin Yip. As you mentioned, their temple is a place which provide a lot of services to the people. I want to specifically ask you about in terms of education, as you said that Buddhist monastery also plays an important role in terms of its education. What kind of education that monastery have been providing to society?
In Cambodia, we have two kinds of education. One is secular education run by the government, and the other one is monastic education run by the Sangha community, which is funded fully by the government. And the temple, the monastery is defined as the educational center. Is one thing that the temple provide educations to the ones who is the ones who is ordained as a monastic member, and the other one is each and every day Buddhist monk goes out of the temple and teach the people informally in terms of preaching, in terms of giving counseling, and especially they teach Buddhism on different stages. So this is the reason that we call the Cambodian Buddhist Temple as an educational center, day and night. Because when, for example, we start from even when some people when the wife got pregnant, so they invite Buddhist monk to bless them, and we also give a very short teaching, a very short preaching. Tell her to, kind of not to get not to get angry, to be happy, and kind of get ready for the baby, and we bless them. And then when they got married, we also go to bless them. And when they got a house, new house, we also go to bless them. Bless them means we also give some very short teaching, tell them how to live. And when they got married, when they got a baby, when they got sick, and when they die. So from the very beginning of life until the end of Cambodian life, Buddhist monk is always associated with the life of the people. So this is called informal education. Sometimes I think it's more powerful than the formal education at school too. Yeah. Because I used to go to the temple or go to the peoples when they are suffering from either sickness or family problems or whatever we may call. Our presence at their homes are places. They feel some sort of warmth, some sort of release that they see us. But the way we approach them, it has to be carefully managed. Otherwise, it's gonna give some more problems. But this is another issue that we can talk later. So apart from all this kind of religious education, informal education, we also have the formal monastic education, which is provided to the member of monastics. And, I think, like, for example, in Cambodia right now, we have around 60,000 monks. Out of these 60,000 monks, around 80% are at school, at monastic school, or we call Salapalay. So this is the peoples, this is the sons of Cambodian Buddhists all over the countries. They come to live and study in the temple. So the temple provide all these sort of educations to these monks. And apart from monastic members, we also have temple boys. We call simply we call it Konsalok. So most of the temple boys are poor boys from different provinces, which they try to pursue a higher education in the city, either in the city or in a small town in different places across the country. So the temple becomes the only place, the only option for those underprivileged populations to rely on. So you got a free food, you got free accommodations, and while they are at the temple, so they're gonna learn Buddhism and they experience the monastic way of life. So these are all the reasons that make the people call the Buddhist temple as educational center.
Thank you, Honorable Doctor. So Wat or Khmer Monastery is not just a place of healing, but especially the center for education. As you mentioned, education play the most important part in the Cambodian context as as the Wat or monastery. I remember a lot of good human resources has been produced from the monastery, So we may call the temples like a factory, produced a lot of good human resources, like, for example, some Dachunat and a lot of other scholars who have solely devoted their life, dedicated to Buddhism, and the whole life, they've been in the temple, like some Dachunat himself, since at the age of 14 years. He went to live in the temple, and under the leadership of the monk, he attended education from school to school until he graduated and became a great scholar of Cambodia. And if we remember back in the French colonization, our culture, our language was almost gone, but the temple preserved it. So temple has been part of the cultural center, as we have mentioned earlier. It's not just a place of simple education, but it also a place of cultural preservation, language and literature preservation, and a lot of things, a lot of skill has been taught at the monastery. Of course, back in the past, the access to education was really hard. We cannot get it nowhere, but in the temple, where temple boys, they get access to free education and free accommodation, and also they are taught with some skills. So when they come back to normal life, they could have some livelihood to depend on themselves. So most of the temple boys, they now become the great scholar. they have become great scholars in Cambodian society. Some they have become great leaders even up to nowadays. So Venerable Kaisupir, would you have anything to add on to that, as we are Buddhist monks, and I believe that we have a lot of gratitude, talking about the monastery. How would you reflect your life without the temple, the monastery?
Wow. Well, simply without sheltering at the temple, I don't know how my life is gonna be like. It's extremely hard, and I won't be having this opportunity. Especially to speak English, because it's a lot. It means a lot for me personally. For the monastery, it means the whole things in my life. And I would like to refer a little bit to Venerable Dr. Yuan Tengget, and you also mentioned about the centers of the monastery. One thing that Cambodian Buddhist monk roles play in America is to teach moral conduct to the people. Although we are not having a formal class in every temple, but usually we teach them during the ceremonies at the houses, at the temple. Moral conduct is very important. For example, the 5 precepts, the basic teachings in the Buddha's teaching. Moral conduct even in America, it is a very a big deal in growing the society, in prospering the society. So we all need immoral conduct, and to sustain and to assure the happiness of each and every one of us, and not just Cambodian communities, but also American communities, Cambodian American and American people who are desperately want to learn. You can see that in America, not just Khmer Buddhist monks, but we also have a significant numbers of the American monks as well. So, American people who became a monk and practice Buddha's teaching. So yes, they are all teaching the moral conduct, and to a different level. So I think this is a very important, a very significant that we all of us learn this moral conduct and act properly, and to assure that we all overcome all the sufferings that we are experiencing in life. So yeah, this is all.
That is amazing, Pandey. That's amazing. I think most of the secular school is not just a place of, mostly we focuses on learning, education, getting knowledge, but the education provided by Buddhism is mainly focusing on how we behave, on how we control ourselves, guard our senses in terms of restraining and moral discipline, spirituality, training the mind, meditation. And this is very, I think, the most important part of the Buddhist education, contributed through the temple, through the monastery. Let me turn back to Most Venerable Doctor. How would you reflect your life without the monastery?
I think Cambodian temple is very unique comparing to the temples in Laos, in Thai, in Sri Lanka, and other Buddhist countries, because it seems that Cambodian temple is everything. For example, when you are happy, you come to the temple. When you are suffering, you come to the temple. Sometimes it's very funny to read this story. For example, if people feel that something is not good, then they bring all those things to the temple, kind of to cleanse it, make it holy, or make it a good thing. For example, if they believe that this animal is not good, so they bring to the temple. They feel that temple is a place where they can cure all those bad omens. And for me, I became a monk not because of I understand Buddhism, but because of the tradition. As we know that our tradition is not required, but it's sort of mentality that the sons of the family have to be ordained for a short period in order to pay respect to the parents. So through that traditional practice, I became a monk. And from the very first beginning of my ordained life, I was not very satisfied with it because I feel a different way of life. But gradually, when I studied, years by years, then I feel I'm okay, and I feel happy to be in a temple. And temple has uh, kind of transformed me from a um, very uneducated boy to not very educated to just a man who can understand a little bit about society and about life. So the temple is a very good place to enjoy, to learn, and to live.
Thank you so much, Venerable Doctor, for sharing a very great idea of how would you reflect the meaning and importance of the monastery to your own life from both Venerable speaker. Thank you so much. And we are running out of time, but I would like to give the last question each minute to all of you. Start from Venerable Thita Kuno Kaisupi. We have been talking a lot of good points from monastery, how it contributes to the society. But one thing, what is one thing you would like to improve if you see that it needs to be improved in the Cambodian monastery, either in Cambodia or in the United States of America? What would it be? Mute, you are muted, sorry. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah. For me personally, education. You know, for me personally, education is the core, or it's the fundamental that can help all of us to be prosper and at the same time to grow. So, you know, something that we need to change and we need to support is that we must do more on education. I think Venerable Doctor did a very great job in helping, you know, all the institutions, you know, because, you know, in every developed country, education is the most important thing. It's a place where we all can learn and can make wrong to right. You know, if we're only focusing on building buildings, and then I think we are going slow. Yeah, thank you for this.
Thank you for focusing on education rather than just the building resources, but human resources. What about Brahmani Kosal, Venerable Doctor? What is something you would like to be improved?
I agree with Venerable Kaisupi. Education is very important, and the Buddha always want monks to be learned, because we are the one who teach the people, who teach the masses about life, morality, philosophy, or whatever. It is a good element for a happy life. So education is a must. At the same time, I think that especially in this modern era, Buddhist monks must update themselves with the new arrival of the social advancement in terms of technologies, in terms of other knowledge, which they have to catch up with the society. The way that we propagate Buddhism, the way that we teach Buddhism nowadays is quite different from 20 years, 60 years, 50 years back. We have to update ourselves. We cannot just carry one microphone and talk on the road. No. This day it is different. So Buddhist monk must not complain about the advancement of technology, but must study it and use it in a very proper way. Because nowadays you don't need to go to library to read Tripitaka. You just have one smartphone and everything. Tripitaka, Atthakatha, Deka, and everything. The whole libraries. If you know how to use that digital resources, you can have access to millions of books. So monks must update themselves with this new advancement in the society. And at the same time, the temple should not be a place where the body have to be buried. We should not make our temple as a cemetery. The temple is a place to give education. It's a place to discuss about life, a place where can help the people, and it should be a garden for all the practitioners. And building or erecting stupas in the temples is not really a Buddhist path. So please careful about it. I have an option, because now Cambodian temples seems to be transformed from a very beautiful place to a cemetery nowadays. It's very crowded and disorder. I think one temple should have only one stupa, one chetia, and we can keep all the people as in one place. And in that sense, I think Cambodian temple can be more beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That is very interesting in terms of the Chet Day. Most of the, not I think some temple, a lot of Chet Day, and even some people traditionally they still minding about that. They don't want the monk to get rid of the Chet Day. You know, if one person die, definitely they have to build one Chet Day, very large Chet Day for their family. So imagine like 100 people to come and they die. So 100 Chet Day will be filled throughout the compound of monastery, and the monk will have no place to stay at all, and very complicated environment actually. Thank you for raising about that point. People shouldn't mind about that thing at all. They should understand the environmental problem as well and the monk situation. And I couldn't agree more on education. And as Venerable Doctor said, we should also catch up with the advancement of the modern society. Education, not just through the books, but nowadays, you know, taking a stand right now, we are doing this platform as online platform is also a way of conveying a message in terms of education to people according to the advancement of technology. So I believe that throughout our live show discussion today, our people, especially Cambodian monks and people, should have learned something about our discussion, even not much, at least a little bit about some useful information that both venerable speakers have provided very meaningfully, and especially education, as both of you focused, importantly focus on the education as monks. We are the important figure to be part of the educational propagation, especially each temple, each Khmer monastery should focus on education rather than just the structural resources. So human resources is so important in societal development, in promoting culture, literature, and also spiritual development. So thank you very much again for both venerable speaker, most venerable Bhikkhu Thita Kuno Kai Supir, live from California, and Brahmani Kosal, Dr. Yon Sinjit from Cambodia, for contributing the knowledge for all of us today. And finally, before ending the show, I would like to accumulate all merit from the gift of Dhamma today. May this merit be accrued to all beings in the whole universe. May all people live in peace and be free from danger and fear. May all beings be well and happy. Thank you everyone for viewing our live show, and we wish you all the best. Thank you so much. Goodbye.